I recently got into a bit of an exchange with Caitlyn Jenner over the recent fires and who should be responsible for underbrush clearing. Let's read the original thread Caitlyn posted, and then we're going to go over this because I've been in this back and forth with a lot of people about this. I know I have controversial views about this. Everybody wants to blame the government, and maybe the government has something to do with it, but I just want to clarify um, these ideas a little bit. So Caitlyn writes, my 13-acre property in Malibu, which is millions upon millions of dollars. Okay, 13 acres in Malibu, like you're rich, right? We all know that Caitlyn Jenner's rich. My 13-acre property in Malibu backs up to California state land circled in red. Notice the difference between my groundskeeping and the state's. No underbrush or forest management by the state on their lands, providing a plethora of fuel for wildfires. No underbrush on my land. So he's pointing out that there's no underbrush on his land, but there's a lot of underbrush on the state land. Fine. Right, that's true. I could see that in the picture. It says California has massive forest management problem. If you own land in California or LA County and don't clear it every year, you are penalized with fines. We have extremely high property taxes and are held to high standards of ground clearance to prevent fires from spreading. California equals hypocrisy. So he's saying, I have to clear my lands, and if I don't do what the state regulates, I get fined. Meanwhile, the state doesn't have to regulate, they don't have to clear their land. Why doesn't the state, who is taking in record property tax revenues, manage their forests? The only reason my home survived the last round of fires was because of the ground clearance we are mandated to do. The underbrush is fuel for wildfires. The government is absurd. Having California state lands as a neighbor is dangerous and a major liability because they don't follow any standards or provide ground clearance the way they force their overtaxed citizens to. So let me just break this down. First of all, some of you are going to point out, why are you saying he? Some people got mad at me for that. I will respect the fact that Bruce wants to now be called Caitlyn. People change their names all the time. What's a name? This whole idea that some names are masculine or feminine, that's kind of like, it depends. Like Kim, for example, is feminine more here in the United States, but in Denmark, it's more masculine. So whatever, I don't really care about a name. So I will respect a person's name change, but Caitlyn Jenner is a he to me. That's just science. That's the way that it is. I will respect that. He wants to wear whatever he wants to wear, grow his hair out, wear makeup, be called Caitlyn. Like all of that to me is perfectly acceptable and fine. Everybody to each their own, and they could be their own person. But I think we have to get back to science, and science is science. And I just think we have to, start pushing back on some of the insanity. And I don't even know if Caitlyn Jenner cares if he's referred to as a he. I don't think he really denies that. I know his kids still call him dad. So anyway, that's beside the point. That's just a little side note. Many of us pushing back against women versus real women. What's a real woman? All that stuff. I'm a real woman. Bottom line, it comes with its own problems. Okay. As many of you know, and we create problems too, don't we, women? We just create all kinds of problems. So my tweet response to Caitlyn, and then we're going to get into this. I said, should taxpayers be forced to foot the bill to keep homes safe for the wealthy elites who choose to live in these ultra fire-prone hills in the most fire-prone state? Because you choose to live in these areas with gorgeous lands and views, we have to provide infrastructure like sewers, roads, water systems, emergency services, and now expensive fire prevention measures, all funded by taxpayers who may never set foot in your exclusive neighborhood. Why should the average citizen struggling to make ends meet in a modest home be responsible for subsidizing the luxurious lifestyles of those who knowingly choose to build in high-risk areas? If you can afford the multi-million-dollar price tag on these properties, shouldn't you also bear the cost of keeping them safe? Where is the line between personal responsibility and public obligation? I actually vote Republican in this state because I take personal responsibility seriously. Suddenly, after this tragedy, a bunch of Republicans are now asking for taxpayer money and more government intervention. And Caitlyn wrote back and said, your interpretation is grossly misguided. This isn't about me or my home. I am good and my home is very safe. The state should maintain its lands. It's a basic service, forest management. All of the taxes paid by we, the people, already pay for and must demand from our leaders. Well, then why you complaining? What you bitching about? I don't understand. If your house was safe and you're saying you're good and your home is very safe, well, why your home was safe and why your home was spared? Because like you said, you cleared the underbrush from your property like the state told you to do. The state said to you, Caitlyn, you're responsible for your property. You have to have this a zone around your property that is cleared as a fire barrier. That is required by the state if you're going to be living up against these lands. Caitlyn did what Caitlyn was supposed to do, and guess what? Caitlyn's house was spared. So it sounds like it worked out just fine. That's what it sounds like to me. Sounds like, okay, then, if everybody just followed the rules. One of the things that's gone on here in California, first of all, about property taxes, California halts. You don't, a lot of these homeowners don't pay that many, they don't pay that high of property taxes because California doesn't raise them every year. You pay the property tax from the time you bought the place. Proposition 13, it's California's strict property tax law. It caps property tax increases. So a lot of these homeowners don't pay, they're not paying astronomical property taxes like you might think they are, even though their houses are worth a fortune. The thing about this is, so this is what I'm seeing in California. I'm seeing right now a lot of Republicans kind of abandoning typical Republican ethos, which is personal responsibility and less government. I'm suddenly seeing a lot of people asking for more government, saying, where's the government? Where's the government? And yet, if you just followed the government regulation of creating a fire barrier around your house and a brush clearing around your property, then perhaps your property would be saved the way Caitlyn's was saved. One of the issues that the fire department has been complaining about here is underfunding. And one of the things that they said they're underfunded on is property inspection, that they largely because a lot of people want less government. So it was one of the things that kind of got cut or lost in the mix was having these firefighters going around checking the properties, making sure that the property owner has done their job of properly clearing their land to prevent wildfires. That wasn't really happening. It's that program, the inspection program, it's hit or miss. It's not very great, and that largely could have contributed to the recent fires where a lot of these property owners were not doing their job. I could tell you the vast majority don't. It's costly to clear your land of underbrush. If no one's coming to inspect, why do it? It's costly. And a lot of people just think, oh, it won't happen to me. I've lived through all these wildfires. I've evacuated numerous times in this area. I've always been okay. It'll never happen to me. And then suddenly it does. And then they scream and say, where the hell was the government? It's like, what do you mean, where the hell was the government? Now you suddenly want more government? I mean, I don't understand what's happening here. Do you want more government or do you not? Do you want less taxes or do you want more taxes? So do you want to tax us more so that we could go around and start clearing the hundreds of, we've got how many acres of wildlife here in California? How much of it do you want cleared in order to keep your property safe because you've chosen to live in these hills that are fire prone? A lot of other states, they require private landowners that are living near these fire prone areas, they're required to contribute to the labor funds for fire mitigation efforts. A lot of states do that. They'll say, look, it's your responsibility. You live here. So if you want us to do this, you have to pay like an extra fee in order to do that. I'm open to that if that's what these people that are screaming about the fires and what happened. I'm hearing it from a lot of different people. I'm hearing, what about the water system? We pay property taxes. We expect infrastructure. They have infrastructure. These communities had water. The water issue in particular, because really I think the water was the problem. The wind was the biggest problem. The wind was outrageous. The wind was hurricane. I was sitting here through it. It was terrible. Other people that you watch on shows, I'll tell you, I'm not going to call out people in particular, but I just want to say people weren't here in town. They didn't see the wind themselves. They were gone, they weren't here to see how bad the wind was. The wind was freaking crazy, unlike I'd ever seen. Trees were falling on cars and people. It was insane. So that was just one issue that was just, that was going to be a tough issue. Then saying, well, where's the city? Where's the state clearing underbrush? So you want them to actually come around and now do the inspections. So now you're saying, come and regulate me. I want more regulation. Okay, I agree. I guess they should probably come around and start actually enforcing the regulation of you having to be responsible and clearing the underbrush off of your property. Now, then you say, well, then no, they should also clear the state land. Caitlyn's looking at, he's got 13 freaking acres and he's like, they didn't clear, look at how close. So you expect the fire to not touch your property at all? I mean, give me a break. You have 13 acres. How big is your house? I'm sure it's not even is it 13 acres large? So we have to really protect all, we got to clear all the underbrush. No, that's outrageous. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous thinking. And if that's what they're demanding, I mean, this is the wealthy elite. And Caitlyn is Republican, talking about possibly running for Republican governor of California. And I'm like, what's your first priority? Are you going to tax the shit out of us and tell us that we have to pay for land clearing around your 13-acre property after you just said you were okay because you did the land clearing like you were supposed to? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. So make it make sense to me, Republican. Or what do you want? You want to staff the fire department so they go around and actually regulate people? Okay, Republican, I agree. You probably should do that because they do that in states like Idaho, Montana, and Texas. Republican states, but they actually do that. So you probably should do that. Then there's this idea of water infrastructure. People are saying, well, the wells, the reservoir was empty. The reservoir was empty. That is certainly a problem that the Santa Ynez reservoir in Palisades was empty. But the fact of the matter is fire hydrants are not set up to fight wildfires. Do you see fire hydrants just littered throughout the forest to fight wildfires? That's not the way wildfires are fought. Fire hydrants are set up in communities to fight normal fires, normal house fires, kitchen fires, gas fires. That's what they're set up for. They're not set up for massive wildfires coming into these properties and destroying everything. That's what happened in Palisades. They ran out of water because the pressure couldn't get the water uphill, which water doesn't flow uphill. So they couldn't get the pressure into the pipes to push the water uphill. They had plenty of water downhill. They didn't have water uphill, and they just couldn't fight these massive wildfires with infrastructure that was set up to battle kitchen fires. So now what they're asking for, what the people in Palisades are asking for, is they want the taxpayers. And then they say, well, we pay really high property taxes. Okay, well, so do people in Newport Beach. They don't have any wildfires, but you're going to expect the multi-million-dollar mansion owner in Newport Beach and in Venice Beach and in Santa Monica on the ocean where they have no risk of wildfire. You're expecting them to now foot the bill for what? Not just basic infrastructure in your community. We already provided that. And that was, by the way, expensive. So your property taxes that are higher did help pay for the fact that it is hard to put regular water systems into neighborhoods that are built on hills. That takes extra pumps and, extra infrastructure. That was put into those neighborhoods. Basic infrastructure was given to them. They have roads, they have electricity, they have sewage, they have water, they have firefighters and police. They have all of these things. And by the way, they have nicer roads and they have nicer everything. Their taxes pay for them to have much cleaner, nicer communities. And they don't have homelessness, because they shove them all out of there. I mean, everything there is a lot nicer. And now what they're demanding is for us to install wildfire level water systems, not just basic infrastructure that we all get, but they now want extra above that to keep them extra protected, which is to fight systems to fight wildfires. And I should we, the taxpayer, be responsible for that? Should the homeowner in Newport Beach with their $10 million mansion in Newport Beach, should they be responsible for putting together wildfire prevention in these luxury neighborhoods? I mean, that's, I think, the big question that we should be asking. You have the infrastructure like all the rest of us there, but now you're asking for more because the rest of us don't really need wildfire infrastructure, but now you do. And so, and by the way, the reservoir was not dry for the Eaton fire, and the Eaton fire destroyed more homes. The Eaton fire, the issue was, once again, it's very difficult to pump water uphill. They had to turn off the electricity, and they couldn't pump the water up the hill. And again, the water systems, those fire hydrant systems, are not set up for fighting wildfires anyway. So this was a mixture of a lot of really unfortunate events. But the solution, the issue that I have is what people are calling for in the solutions. And those solutions they're asking for is multi-million dollar, if not billions of dollars in better water infrastructure to fight wildfires around these communities. They want more state to go around and clearing state land when private property owners could clear their own properties and fireproof their own houses. That is something that they should be required to do. That is what's done in a lot of other states. A lot of other states do land clearing and controlled burns. And by the way, in California, most of the land is actually governed by the federal government. And when Trump was president, he did the Trump presidency called for a lot of thinning of the forest, but not controlled burns. The Biden administration actually has done more controlled burns in the state of California on federal lands than the Trump administration. So that's something right there too, just to kind of think about. But a lot of these residents, they don't want controlled burns in their areas because of the air quality and all of this. So they get mad about that. Of course, you do have the environmental groups. But here's another thing about the environmental groups. The environmental groups say, we don't want all of these measures done. We want to preserve the wildlife areas. And now we see these fires and people say, oh, it's because these environmental groups. But then at the same time, the reason why people live in these areas is because they like the vegetation. Like the reason why you want to live, you don't want to live on a barren hill where you go hiking and you're looking at nothing, because it's all been clear cut so that your house is safe. I mean, that's fine. If you want to do that, let's do that. Let's show you. Let's teach you a lesson. Clear cut everything, get rid of all of that so that your house is safe. And then when you go and you realize you spent millions of dollars on this property because you wanted it to be wooded and private and you wanted to go hiking in beautiful settings and all of it's gone, well, you only have you to blame because you called for it. You wanted it. That's you decided to live there and now you're calling for these measures. Is it you chose to live right up next to wildlife? I mean, you're living in the wilderness essentially. You've allowed, you built in the wilderness. You've made it not wilderness anymore, but it still is wilderness. You're surrounded by wilderness. And now you don't like the wilderness. You don't like what the wilderness brings. I mean, I just am not understanding the mentalities of the Republicans here and what they want their solution to be. All I'm hearing is more government regulation, more government spending, more taxation in order to get, then they'll say, no, 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 no. There's a lot of waste. We could actually cut back on other programs. I don't think so, guys. You know how much it's going to cost to build water infrastructure to wildfire proof your area, to give the resource of water to your area for a wildfire? I mean, that's not like, oh, we'll just cut some waste from some other spot and give it to you. I mean, that's going to be a fortune. That's going to cost a fortune. And really the biggest mitigator is going to be burying power lines, but that's $3 million a mile. And, that's outrageously expensive as well. So I don't know, I think it was just, of course, there's a lot of things that could be done that the state could maybe do a little bit more fire zone clearing around some of these areas. But at the same time, the residents wouldn't like, I'm telling you, the residents would not like that. They say that's what they should do. But then I'm like, that's exactly where you go hiking. And now you want them to actually clear it out. Like you want them to thin that area that you go hike. That's like your hiking spot. Are you going to go now take your car and travel 10 miles out in order to go hiking because we had to clear all of this land near your property? I mean, it's just complicated. I don't think that they're really thinking it through. I think a lot of people are acting, they're emotional about the issue. I understand why a lot of people are emotional about the issue. They live in those hills. The other shows you watch, they live in those hills. I don't. I chose purposefully not to live in those hills. And so I have a different, I didn't live in those hills for this fire reason because I knew it was a fire hazard. And so that's just, anyway, I did get an email I wanted to share with you. This came from Andrea. She says, I agree with personal responsibility when it comes to coverage on multi-million-dollar homes, especially when it's common knowledge and homeowners knew about the risk. In my opinion, both state of California and or insurance companies should require that these homeowners have irrigation systems in their homes to mitigate the well-known risk. In Texas, for instance, it is required by code for homes over 5,000 square feet to have an irrigation system for situations like this. And so if the politicians in California are bought out by the rich people, then it should be on insurance companies to mitigate their own risk by requiring the same equal to, and not to increase premiums for all policies across the nation. When I heard that, I was furious. I should not pay for their losses because insurance or the state has no common sense after years of fires. When are they going to learn and do something? I left the East Coast, they had hurricanes, and neither did I choose to live in California. I should not be paying for those that knowingly took that risk. Yeah. And I think my point on this is the solutions that they're coming up with, all of them just make the situation worse. It's Republicans now screaming for more taxation, more regulation, essentially. I mean, they're not saying it like that, but that's what they're calling for. They're calling for more taxation, more regulation, more government intervention. You've got the Democrats now wanting to force insurance companies into insuring these homes so that they don't see these types of losses. And then also telling the insurance companies they're not allowed to raise rates. So then what do insurance companies do? They raise it on all of us. So we all get screwed. I mean, either way, what these rich Democrats and rich Republicans are doing is they're calling for all of us to get screwed. And that's the way I'm seeing it. That's the way I'm seeing it. Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show. If you want to watch the full show, visit KimIversonShow.com. The show airs every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, it's KimIversonShow.com. See you there.